Early yesterday morning, just before dawn, this appeared in the Norwegian sky.
Hva i helvete er det der?
That's Norwegian for what the heck is that? A blue light, small at first, growing into a spiral, and then disappearing into what appeared to be a black hole. In the northern community of Trøndelag and on a Norwegian military base, cell phones snapped, video cameras rolled, and bloggers got busy. A respected Russian daily first reported this morning that the third stage of a sophisticated Bulava intercontinental missile failed. And space experts point to the spiraling of this missile as it failed to launch properly as an explanation for the shape seen over Norway, the halo, they say, produced by missile fuel.
Hello, people of YouTube. So, just to start this off, if you want a guy, if you want a channel that's not going to bullshit you with, frankly, unprovable, untestable, and very vague information, and that's actually going to present some solid, useful, important information, you've come to the right place. So, and I intend to show that I am up to the task with that. As you can see here, we're going to be going into some actual potential technology that may potentially be involved with the UFO phenomenon. And well, okay, let's get more to the case here. As you could see from the video, there have been clear objects that were not explainable by any reasonable means. That one not necessarily as the best example, but realistically, I mean, what is the likelihood that a spiraling damaged missile is going to create such a nice spiral, create a spiral that if you go back to the video, or if you just look it up on YouTube, the spiral UFO video, as some people may have already seen, it has such an arc to it that it's just unreasonable for just an ordinary trail from like a rocket. But the point is, there is definitely some at least some reality to UFO phenomenon, and even if there aren't ships, there are at least some objects in the sky which are moving by sort of non-conventional means, and that alone is worth investigating. Now, this is a patent, you can read the number there, the electromagnetic field generator, a method to generate electromagnetic fields. Now, this was actually in a few news articles recently, surprisingly enough. So, I don't know, does that mean that it's maybe that's maybe a lesser technology, or perhaps it's just they're trying to start releasing it because they know that it's going to get exposed at some point soon. Either way, this is basically me going through how it could potentially work and try and give some science to it if possible, so that in theory you could actually potentially build some perhaps mini version of this, since it is theoretically not very challenging, although there are some difficult parts. We'll get to that. As you can see here, the basic concept of it is that when you have basically charged objects that are moving at great speeds, either just by regular motion or by vibration or rotation, there is some kind of propulsive electromagnetic and electrogravitational, from how it seems here, effect. So I'm going to get more into that. So just as a continuation of what I was talking about before, this is basically just explaining or reiterating on the previous part of the patent that I showed, and basically it's explaining that that basically this rotation and or vibration of charged objects causes some sort of quantum vacuum polarization effect, and this essentially, in addition to potentially causing some kind of plasma-like propulsion, causes the reduction of gravity and mass and inertia of a craft. So, but getting more to the explanation of the actual effect equation that is in the patent, and I'm going to be trying to explain the actual science of it so that you have the general idea of, or a kind of a specific idea of how this thing works. So the first one there, or the first term there that's underlined with the gray underline is the geometric shape factor, as it says. Now this basically means that depending on the shape of a craft, you can have a different amount of propulsive effect or anti-gravitational mass reduction effect. The second factor in the equation that I showed there was the Gamma-Lorentz effect, which is related to length contraction as well as time dilation. Now this is only important, I suppose, for motions or velocities close to the speed of light. So, I mean, and just to be clear, we are talking about incredible velocities with this kind of stuff, but I am going to continue on because it may or may not be that relevant. Now, getting to the next parts of the equation, you have the term that looks like EO there, but it's the electrical permittivity of free space, and that's a constant, so we don't have to worry about that. But the term that's underlined by the orange line is quite important because that's the surface charge density, and that has a square factor in this effect, which means that the strength of the surface charge density is very important to this creating this effect. Now, the interesting thing about this is that charge is equal to capacitance times voltage, which means that increasing the surface area by making the object or ship larger won't increase the surface charge density. However, having a higher voltage will increase the surface charge density, as evidenced by capacitance being related to, excuse me, charge being capacitance times voltage. So now I guess the important thing to mention here is that a smooth object that's larger can have a higher voltage or can hold a higher electrostatic charge, but once it gets to these sizes, it becomes kind of unimportant for it to be larger. I mean, basically, it could theoretically hold a higher voltage, but then the problem would be generating it without having the voltage source to cause negative effects on the ship's electronics or the crew members. But anyway, basically, so essentially, when the voltage of something is higher, when it's being electrically charged, that means that more charges are in a given amount of surface area, and it increases according to the square of that. So that's extremely important for this, basically. And finally, we have the last three terms, which are underlined in green, blue, and purple, as you can see here. And yeah, those are, well, it kind of says it right there, but I am gonna try explain it if it's at all unclear. And those are the basically the frequency of the rotation, or well, it's the frequency of the rotation times the radius of rotation, which is equal to the speed of rotation, and we have the speed of the vibration effectively. And we also have the term that's underlined purple, this curvilinear translation speed. Now that one is a little more unclear to me, but I think basically it's describing that if the craft is moving, this effect also occurs in that case, in addition to if it's vibrating or if it's rotating. Now, I am going to try to explain one possible explanation for how it's going to repel something, although there is another one, but this is the more basic one. Okay, so this is basically demonstrating, or, well, I shouldn't say demonstrating, this is basically showing that a electrostatically charged object will induce charges on a neutral object, which will effectively attract it. And basically, an extreme version of this could potentially happen as a result of this electromagnetic field generator, where the generator effectively causes the air around it to become a plasma or a sheaf of plasma, almost like a force field in a way, that effectively protects the craft by repelling the air molecules so that if it can move through the air without as much resistance and without a sonic boom, at least hypothetically. Now, there is an additional possibility of this. As I mentioned earlier, it would probably be important for this craft to be spherical or something relatively smooth shaped, because charges at high voltages can effectively escape when their sharp ends. However, it is possible that maybe this could be part of a different craft, maybe a triangle craft, which I might also talk about if this video gets a fair amount of views. But that is something else to consider. Yeah, and this is another equation that was suggested in a pad that is used to describe it. And basically, it's similar to the other one I showed, except in this case, it's involving angular frequency. But I'm not really sure at this point if it's necessary for me to go into this that much, because I bet you that those who are interested in it could probably just try to understand this part themselves, at least once they understand, I guess, the other terms in the equation. But basically, let's just sum this up at this point. Okay, so there you go. I mean, it's right out in the open, guys. I mean, I don't know if this is maybe just a possible design that they're currently working on, or this is something that's actually in use. But I mean, I think it's important and crucial that the scientific community, if not the scientific community, the hobbyist community, or just the UFO community, start to look into any claims that can actually be potentially verified like this, even if it is difficult to do so. And as you can see here, I've pictured this other patent, because this patent is part of this patent, which is exactly like the triangle UFO or the TR-3B type UFO that a lot of people have seen and have been seeing. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to actually try to investigate this, because there hasn't been a lot of talk of it. But I'm certainly not going to forget about this, and I do think it would be worth investigating. But nevertheless, we'll have to see how things work out. Okay, so I guess that'll be all. Now to get to my last point. Oh, well, okay, I'll say it. All right, so just in case anybody, happens to, have an issue with me, because I am talking about this I am talking about this in connection with the Radar 51 event. Of course, I don't condone or suggest, doing that, because, well, obviously it's going to be dangerous doing that. I mean, no shit. But in addition to that, let's just also consider the fact that some of the most important technology may not actually be there anymore. I mean, it's not just because of them moving it when they started to hear of this event, but also because, I mean, they may have moved it to like some other lesser known base and so at some point in the past. So, and I think at this point, considering how may in fact be, and there probably are at this point, a lot of aspects of our government that are not in our control, and unfortunately won't be, because of our political system being stuck on the same basic issues and basically going around circles. I think we need to approach this from a scientific perspective and basically try to see what we can do, without actually, getting anything from whatever secret military bases are out there. So, I mean, really, it has to just be an effort by people And even though we may be missing a lot of pieces, I think that investigating actual uh, actual info like this that's solid and testable and can be reasonably evaluated, that's the way to go. Now, as far as my channel goes, I mean, I, I I would like it if this would get a lot of views, but I wouldn't be surprised if YouTube just doesn't want to suggest this. Possibly because my channel's kind of small, or because they don't want people to think too seriously about this stuff. But look, if this video isn't that successful, I am going to continue posting content like this, but I might also post some less serious stuff. What I mean by less serious, well, I mean that depends, but the point is, if you do want to support this channel with some solid, or at least in my opinion, intriguing information that is, not just vagueness that you've heard before in different versions on different channels or on shows. Yeah, definitely subscribe and share a video if possible. And yeah, nevertheless, I do appreciate those who do watch my videos. But yeah, nevertheless, uh, if I do post videos that are not of this kind of subject nature or the nature of my last video, it's probably just because I'm trying to get some extra views or something. But anyway, okay. So hope you got something out of that, and take care.